What if the future you dreamed of was suddenly right in front of you, but at the cost of everything you've ever known? This is the question swirling in the minds of millions across America as Elon Musk's latest innovation prepares to launch, an invention promised to revolutionize life in ways no one could have imagined. The streets buzz with rumors, social media explodes with speculation, and the government watches closely. Yet behind the shiny headlines and grand promises lies a story of struggle, betrayal, and the human spirit's relentless drive to push forward. It all begins on a cold November night in the Nevada desert, where Elena Carter, the lead engineer for Musk's breakthrough project, stares at the glowing panels of data streaming across her tablet. The device she and her team have poured their lives into is seconds away from its first live test, but something feels off. A subtle blip, almost imperceptible to anyone but her trained, signals a potential failure that could cost not just millions of dollars but the dreams of millions of Americans hoping for a better tomorrow. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Elena's voice is calm but tight, echoing the tension in the air. In the background, the desert wind howls softly, a reminder of how isolated and vulnerable they are out here. Her thoughts drift to the people she's fighting for, her younger brother Mark, bedridden with a rare illness, whose fragile health depends on the breakthrough energy technology they're about to unveil, Dr. Simmons, her mentor, whose unwavering belief in Elena has been a lifeline through years of setbacks, and most of all, her mother, gone too soon, whose memory fuels every late night and every grueling test. Elena wasn't always the confident engineer leading this historic effort. Born and raised in a small Texas town, she grew up feeling like an outsider, an ambitious girl in a world that didn't expect her to make it far. Her father, a strict man shaped by old-school values, saw her dreams as distractions, not possibilities. When her mother died from complications after a routine surgery, Elena's fragile family unit shattered. But in that grief, she found a fire. She vowed to make her mark, not just for herself but for Mark, who needed more than hope, he needed a future. The journey from those humble beginnings to this desert test site has been anything but smooth. Along the way, Elena faced discrimination and doubt, moments when the weight of expectations nearly crushed her spirit. Yet every obstacle sharpened her resolve. Now, standing on the brink of what could be the most significant technological breakthrough in decades, she feels the pressure mounting like never before. The stakes are no longer just professional, they are deeply personal. As the countdown begins, Elena remembers the countless nights spent balancing fragile prototypes with sleepless worry over Mark's condition. The innovation they're about to launch isn't just a machine, it's a promise of clean, unlimited energy that could transform cities, homes, and lives. It's the culmination of years of work by a dedicated team, each member sacrificing their own dreams to build this future. But beneath the surface, tensions simmer. Elon Musk himself, known for his visionary brilliance and ruthless demands, has pushed the team harder than ever. His public persona inspires awe, but his relentless pursuit of success has fractured relationships behind closed doors. Elena struggles to reconcile her respect for Musk's genius with the doubts growing inside her about the project's readiness. Days before the launch, a critical failure threatens to derail everything. The initial test shows a catastrophic flaw that no one saw coming. The media catch wind of the glitch, and the narrative shifts from hopeful to skeptical overnight. Social media trolls and industry rivals pounce, painting the innovation as an overhyped disaster. Elena feels the sting of betrayal, not just from the outside world but from within. A trusted team member leaks sensitive data to a competitor, undermining their efforts and putting years of work at risk. This act of treachery cuts deep, leaving Elena questioning whom she can trust. Yet even in this darkness, a flicker of hope remains. A young engineer named Josh, quiet but fiercely loyal, steps forward with an idea that could fix the flaw. His belief reignites Elena's determination, reminding her that innovation is never a straight line but a journey of peaks and valleys. The team relocates to a remote desert testing facility where the harsh landscape mirrors the intensity of their mission. Nights are long, days blistering, and the weight of responsibility heavy on Elena's shoulders. The environment is unforgiving, pushing both machines and humans to their limits. As they work tirelessly to overcome setbacks, Elena's leadership is tested in new ways. She must navigate conflicts, manage fear, and inspire a team on the brink of collapse. The desert becomes a crucible where the true nature of the innovation, and those behind it, is forged. Then comes the moment of betrayal's revelation. Elena discovers that the leak came from a senior engineer, someone she once considered a friend. The confrontation is raw and painful, exposing hidden resentments and ambitions that threaten to tear the team apart. Worse still, a secret about Elon Musk's involvement with a rival company surfaces, shaking Elena's faith in the man whose vision she helped build. Despite this, Elena refuses to give in. She realizes that waiting for others to save the project is no longer an option. Taking charge, she charts a new course, rallying her team with renewed vigor and a revised plan that blends innovation with caution. The final test day arrives under a sky streaked with dawn's early light. The nation holds its breath as the innovation comes online, its systems humming with promise and danger. The launch is a breathtaking success, a moment of triumph that sends shockwaves across America. News outlets herald it as a turning point, the future is here. But Elena knows better than anyone that success came at a cost, the price of trust, sacrifice, and unyielding hope. As celebrations erupt, she takes a quiet moment to reflect. This breakthrough is more than technology, it's a testament to human resilience and the power of belief. Elena's journey from a small Texas girl to a leader of the future is a story of courage against the odds, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, hope can ignite the path ahead. Life is full of surprises, but love and determination will always lead the way. What pushes you forward when everything seems lost? Elena's story asks that question not just to you, but to herself, as the sun rises on a new America, forever changed by one woman's dream and one man's vision. The storm has arrived, and the future is in motion. Elena Carter's story didn't start under bright lights or in the sleek halls of Silicon Valley. It began in a small, dusty town in West Texas where dreams felt as distant as the stars above the endless plains. Growing up, Elena always felt a step apart from the world around her. Her father, a gruff, no-nonsense man who worked as a mechanic, saw little value in what he called fancy ideas and pushed Elena toward a practical life. One with a steady paycheck and no nonsense about chasing impossible dreams. But Elena's mother was different. Soft-spoken and warm, she nurtured Elena's curiosity and encouraged her to ask questions no one else dared to ask. When Elena was just 10 years old, her mother passed away suddenly after a routine surgery went wrong. The loss shattered the family and left Elena with a deep well of grief but also a fierce determination not to let life's hardships define her future. She threw herself into her studies, found solace in science and math, and dreamed of building things that could change the world. The memory of her mother's gentle encouragement became a guiding light through the darkest days. Elena's younger brother Mark was just 7 when their mother died, and his health soon became fragile. Diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disorder, Mark required constant care, and the medical bills piled up. Elena felt a profound responsibility to care for him, even as she wrestled with her own pain. Their father, hardened by grief, grew distant, and the family fractured further. Elena's home life was a balancing act between love, obligation, and quiet sacrifice. At school, Elena was often the only girl in her advanced science classes. She faced skepticism and sometimes outright hostility from peers and even teachers who doubted a girl from a small town could keep up with the boys from wealthier schools. But Elena's stubborn streak refused to be broken. She spent late nights in the school library, poring over textbooks and building homemade experiments, dreaming of a future beyond the narrow horizons of West Texas. College was a turning point. Elena earned a scholarship to a prestigious engineering program in California, a world away from the dusty streets of her hometown. Here, she encountered new challenges, imposter syndrome, isolation, and the pressure to prove herself daily. But she also found mentors who believed in her potential. Dr. Simmons, a brilliant but tough professor, saw in Elena the same fire her mother once did. Under Dr. Simmons's guidance, Elena flourished, developing the skills and confidence she needed to navigate the competitive world of technology. After graduation, Elena's career path led her to SpaceX, one of Elon Musk's flagship companies. Working on projects that pushed the boundaries of space travel, she quickly earned a reputation as a problem solver with a fierce work ethic. Yet even as her career soared, her personal life remained complex. Mark's health declined, and Elena balanced hospital visits with demanding deadlines. The weight of responsibility never left her. In the background, Elon Musk was a looming presence, part mentor, part enigma. Known for his grand visions and relentless pace, Musk inspired Elena but also challenged her limits. When Musk unveiled his plan for a revolutionary energy innovation, technology capable of delivering clean, limitless power, Elena was handpicked to lead the engineering team. This project wasn't just about innovation. It was about changing the very fabric of society, making energy accessible to every American household and reducing dependence on fossil fuels. The stakes were immense. Elena threw herself into the work with everything she had. Long hours, endless tests, and sleepless nights became the norm. Her team was a mix of brilliant minds and passionate believers, each bringing their unique skills to the mission. Yet despite the excitement, cracks began to show. Musk's vision was bold, but his management style was demanding, often pushing the team to the brink. Tensions simmered beneath the surface. Elena found herself caught between respecting Musk's genius and protecting her team from burnout. The pressure was compounded by the weight of her personal life. Mark's condition worsened, and Elena struggled to find a balance between her devotion to family and her commitment to the project. There were moments when exhaustion threatened to consume her, when the frustration of being a woman in a male-dominated industry felt overwhelming. But Elena's resolve never faltered. She thought of her mother, who had always believed in her, and of Mark, whose fragile health depended on the success of their work. Every setback became fuel for her determination. Relationships within the team were tested as the project progressed. Friendships formed in the trenches, but so did rivalries and suspicion. One team member, Josh, stood out, not just for his technical brilliance but for his quiet loyalty to Elena. He became her confidant, the one person she could trust to share doubts and hopes without fear of judgment. Together, they navigated the complex web of challenges, from technical failures to budget cuts and corporate politics. The world outside was watching. The media buzzed with stories of Musk's new innovation, painting it as either a miracle or a disaster waiting to happen. Elena knew that any failure would be magnified, not just for the company but for her personally. Her name was on the line, and with it, the dreams of millions. The pressure mounted as the launch date approached. In the days leading to the test, Elena was consumed by a mix of fear and hope. The technology had passed every simulation, every internal review, but nothing compared to the real world. One critical night, a glitch emerged in the system's feedback loop. It was subtle, but Elena recognized the danger immediately. Fixing it would mean a delay, risking the entire timeline and attracting unwanted attention. Elon Musk pushed for a go-ahead, confident that the glitch could be managed in real time. Elena, however, insisted on a pause, her instincts warning her of disaster. This disagreement marked a turning point, highlighting the growing rift between visionary ambition and cautious realism. Meanwhile, Elena's personal world was unraveling. Mark's health took a sudden turn for the worse, landing him in the hospital. Elena was torn between her responsibility as a sister and her role as a leader. The two worlds collided in a storm of emotions, fear, guilt, and an unyielding will to succeed. In the quiet moments between meetings and tests, Elena would sit by Mark's bedside, holding his hand and promising a better future. This promise was her anchor, the reason she could face every challenge head-on. As the team moved to the remote testing site in Nevada, the stakes couldn't have been higher. The desert's unforgiving landscape became a metaphor for the journey ahead, harsh, isolating, but full of raw potential. Days bled into nights, filled with technical hurdles and emotional strain. Elena's leadership was tested as never before. She had to inspire a team exhausted by setbacks and wary of the future. Trust was fragile, and every decision carried weight. A sudden betrayal shattered the fragile balance. A senior engineer leaked sensitive data to a competitor, jeopardizing months of work and shaking the foundation of the project. Elena confronted the betrayer, a tense and painful encounter that exposed hidden motives and fractured loyalties. Worse still, a secret came to light about Elon Musk's hidden investments in a rival energy company, throwing Elena's trust and leadership into question. Faced with betrayal and uncertainty, Elena made a bold choice: to take control herself. She restructured the team, cut through politics, and refocused efforts on what truly mattered: the technology and the people depending on it. The innovation's launch was no longer just a corporate milestone. It was a personal mission. The final days before the launch were a whirlwind of preparation and reflection. Elena thought back to that small Texas girl who once stared up at the stars and dared to dream. She remembered the sacrifices, the failures, and the moments of doubt that had shaped her. The launch itself was a breathtaking success, a triumph that sent ripples across the nation. The innovation promised clean, limitless energy, sparking hope in communities long burdened by scarcity and pollution. Yet Elena knew the journey was far from over. The road ahead would bring new challenges, new battles, and new opportunities for growth. Through it all, Elena's story remained a testament to the power of resilience, love, and the courage to push forward, even when the world seemed against her. The future was bright, but it was hers to shape. The days following the launch were a whirlwind of excitement, pressure, and unforeseen challenges. The innovation was making headlines across America, hailed as a breakthrough that could finally break the nation free from reliance on outdated and polluting energy sources. Yet beneath the surface, tension simmered like an undercurrent threatening to pull everything under. Elena Carter, once riding high on the wave of success, now found herself wrestling with a storm that tested not just her technical expertise but her resolve and humanity. The first real sign of trouble came abruptly. Just 3 days after the public debut, an unexpected malfunction triggered a minor but alarming incident at one of the pilot sites. While no one was hurt, the failure sent shockwaves through the media and corporate offices alike. Headlines screamed about potential dangers, and skeptics who had waited in the wings pounced on the opportunity to discredit the innovation. The public's hope began to waver, and Elena felt the weight of their expectations crushing down on her. She convened her core team in the Nevada testing facility, the very place where their dreams had taken shape amid harsh desert winds and sleepless nights. The room was tense, voices tight as they sifted through data to find the root cause of the failure. Fingers pointed, nerves frayed, but Elena kept her focus. She reminded them that every breakthrough carried risk, and the true test was how they responded to adversity. Elon Musk's presence loomed large, even if only in absentia. Known for his unrelenting drive, Musk had made it clear that failure was not an option. Elena's relationship with him was complicated, a mix of admiration and frustration. Musk's visionary ideas pushed the boundaries, but his impatience sometimes ignored the practical realities on the ground. Their clash over the project's readiness had only deepened in the wake of the malfunction. Musk publicly urged the team to move faster, while Elena insisted on rigorous checks and adjustments. This growing tension rippled through the company and fueled a media narrative of discord. Meanwhile, Elena's personal life was slipping through her fingers. Mark's condition, already precarious, took a sudden downturn. Hospital visits became more frequent, each one draining her energy and focus. Her father, still distant and burdened by his own grief, was unable to offer the support she desperately needed. The isolation was profound. Friends and colleagues noticed her growing fatigue, but few understood the full extent of her burden. Late one night, after a grueling day troubleshooting the malfunction, Elena sat alone in the sterile glow of the testing facility's control room. Exhaustion pressed on her like a physical weight, and doubt crept in unbidden. Was the price of this innovation too high? Was she risking too much, not just for herself, but for everyone who believed in the promise of this technology. In those quiet moments, she clung to a single thought: Mark. His fragile life depended on this work. Giving up was not an option. As weeks passed, the team rallied to fix the issues, implementing new safeguards and refining the system. Trust began to rebuild within the group, though the scars of the initial failure remained. Josh, the young engineer who had stood by Elena from the start, emerged as a vital ally. His calm confidence and technical skill helped steady the team's nerves and gave Elena the support she needed to push forward. Together, they navigated the storm of setbacks and skepticism. But just as hope flickered anew, another challenge arose, this time from within. Whispers of dissent began to circulate, fueled by leaked documents and internal disagreements. A faction of the team questioned the project's direction, urging more conservative approaches and warning against Musk's high-risk ambitions. The internal politics became a battleground, threatening to unravel the delicate fabric of collaboration. Elena found herself caught between competing visions, trying to bridge divides and keep the focus on their shared goal. The strain was palpable. In a pivotal meeting, Elena faced harsh criticism from senior engineers accusing her of ignoring warning signs and endangering the project with her loyalty to Musk's aggressive timeline. The confrontation was fierce, voices raised, emotions raw. Yet Elena stood firm, drawing on her years of experience and the strength of her convictions. She reminded the team that innovation demanded courage and resilience, that setbacks were inevitable but not a sign of failure. This moment marked a turning point. Slowly, skepticism gave way to renewed commitment as the team refocused on solving the technical problems. Elena's leadership grew stronger, tempered by humility and an openness to listen. Outside the technical and corporate battles, Elena's world continued to shift. She found unexpected support from a surprising source, a grassroots environmental activist group initially skeptical of the technology. They reached out, wary but curious, seeking dialogue rather than confrontation. Elena saw in their passion a reflection of her own commitment to a better future. Over time, she built bridges, incorporating their feedback into the project's development and fostering a new model of cooperation between innovators and community advocates. This alliance brought fresh hope and momentum to the work. Yet the path was far from smooth. Just as the innovation began to gain wider acceptance, a catastrophic event struck, a malfunction in a major urban pilot system that caused a blackout affecting thousands. Panic spread quickly, with critics branding the technology dangerous and unreliable. The media frenzy was relentless. Elena faced intense public scrutiny, her every decision questioned and her personal life thrust into the spotlight. The toll was heavy. She spent sleepless nights coordinating emergency responses and damage control while grappling with overwhelming guilt. The team fractured under the strain, trust eroded, and morale plummeted. It was a crucible moment that forced Elena to confront the true cost of innovation. In the aftermath, Elena made a painful decision to step back from day-to-day leadership to care for Mark, whose health had taken a critical turn. The choice was wrenching, torn between duty to family and commitment to the project. Her absence left a leadership vacuum, and the company struggled to keep the innovation on course. During this period, Elena found quiet strength in her personal relationships. She leaned on Dr. Simmons, who provided guidance and perspective beyond the technical realm. She also reconnected with old friends from her Texas hometown, grounding her in the love and support she had long missed. This time away gave Elena space to reflect deeply on her journey, the sacrifices, the triumphs, and the lessons learned. She realized that true leadership wasn't just about driving progress but about nurturing people and communities. When Elena returned to the project, she brought with her a renewed vision, one that balanced innovation with responsibility, ambition with empathy. She reassembled the team, healing divisions and inspiring a shared sense of purpose. The innovation evolved, incorporating new safety features and community input, becoming more than a machine, it became a symbol of collective hope. Elena's comeback was marked by a campaign to rebuild public trust, engaging transparently with critics and advocates alike. Her honesty and vulnerability resonated with a nation hungry for authentic leadership. As the innovation faced its ultimate test, a national crisis demanding rapid, reliable energy, Elena's leadership shone brightest. She coordinated responses, managed resources, and stood as a beacon of calm amid chaos. The technology performed beyond expectations, proving its worth and transforming skepticism into admiration. Behind the scenes, Elena's relationship with Elon Musk remained complex. Their mutual respect endured, tempered by competition and differing visions. Yet they shared a common belief in the power of technology to change the world. In the story of Elon Musk's latest innovation, Elena Carter's journey stood at its heart, a testament to resilience, sacrifice, and the indomitable human spirit. The road ahead remained uncertain, but one thing was clear: the future belonged to those who dared to dream and to fight for those dreams, no matter the cost. Elena Carter's journey into the heart of America's latest technological revolution took a sudden and unexpected turn as she embarked on a climactic journey that would redefine everything she thought she knew about innovation, leadership, and herself. It began with a phone call that shattered the fragile calm she had fought so hard to achieve. The voice on the other end was urgent, strained, a senior executive from the Department of Energy. A critical flaw had been detected in the system's core algorithms, a vulnerability that could compromise the entire network and potentially cause widespread outages far beyond their initial pilot zones. The stakes had just escalated from corporate pressure and media scrutiny to a matter of national security. Elena felt the familiar surge of adrenaline mixed with dread. This was no longer just about technology or even public perception, it was a test of her ability to lead under the most intense pressure imaginable. She immediately mobilized her team, shifting from the collaborative mode they had settled into toward a rapid response operation. The remote Nevada testing site transformed into a command center, buzzing with frantic activity. Engineers, data analysts, and cybersecurity experts worked side by side, parsing lines of code and running simulations to isolate the fault. Elena moved through the chaos with a practiced calm, issuing orders, making tough decisions, and fielding questions from anxious colleagues. Every moment mattered. The desert heat pressed in through the cracked windows, and the long days bled into restless nights as sleep became a luxury none could afford. Amid the technical crisis, Elena's personal life remained a fragile backdrop. Mark's condition, though stable, still demanded her attention, and each visit to the hospital felt like walking a tightrope between hope and despair. Her father's health was declining as well, a reminder of the relentless passage of time and the sacrifices made along the way. Despite the exhaustion, Elena found an unexpected source of strength in Josh, whose steady presence offered a grounding force. Their partnership deepened as they navigated the crisis together, blending technical expertise with emotional support. Elena realized that leadership was no longer about solitary decisions but about trust and collaboration in the face of uncertainty. Days into the investigation, a breakthrough came, a subtle bug in the code that had eluded initial tests. Fixing it required not only technical skill but also rewriting large sections of the system's framework, threatening to delay the project indefinitely. Elon Musk's reaction was swift and uncompromising. Publicly, he reiterated his confidence in the technology. Privately, he pressured Elena to find a faster solution. Their clash echoed earlier tensions but now carried even greater weight. Elena stood her ground, insisting that safety and reliability could not be compromised for speed. The confrontation, though tense, reaffirmed Elena's conviction in responsible innovation. As the repairs progressed, Elena spearheaded efforts to enhance the system's transparency. She initiated open forums with community leaders, policymakers, and the public to explain the technology's complexities and the measures taken to ensure safety. This unprecedented move was met with mixed reactions. Some applauded the honesty, while others remained skeptical. Yet, the dialogues fostered a new sense of connection between the innovators and the people whose lives the technology aimed to improve. In parallel, Elena explored partnerships beyond the corporate and governmental spheres. She collaborated with universities and independent researchers, inviting fresh perspectives and peer reviews that strengthened the project's credibility. This openness to external input marked a departure from the secretive, high-pressure environment that had characterized the early days. It was a strategic and philosophical shift that Elena championed as essential for sustainable progress. Throughout this period, vivid scenes unfolded that painted a picture of relentless determination and emotional complexity. The barren Nevada desert, with its harsh sun and endless horizons, mirrored the vast challenges and opportunities facing the team. Elena's late-night walks beneath the starlit sky became moments of introspection and resolve. The sterile brightness of the control room screens contrasted sharply with the warmth of Mark's hospital room, where Elena found fleeting peace. These settings framed a narrative that was as much about human endurance as technological triumph. The story's emotional climax came unexpectedly during a public demonstration intended to restore faith in the innovation. The event was held in a bustling urban center, surrounded by curious spectators, journalists, and skeptical experts. As the system powered up, everything seemed poised for success, until a sudden surge triggered a citywide power fluctuation. For a heart-stopping moment, chaos loomed. But thanks to the recent code fixes and safety protocols, the system stabilized quickly, averting disaster. The crowd's tension dissolved into cautious applause, and Elena felt a surge of relief and pride. This moment was more than a technical victory, it was a testament to perseverance and the human capacity to learn from failure. In the aftermath, Elena reflected deeply on the journey that had brought her here, the losses, the betrayals, the moments of hope, and the relentless pursuit of a better future. She recognized that innovation was not a straight path but a winding road marked by setbacks and breakthroughs. The experience reshaped her understanding of leadership, emphasizing empathy, resilience, and transparency. As the project moved toward broader implementation, Elena took time to share her story publicly. In interviews and speeches, she spoke candidly about the challenges faced and the importance of community engagement. Her message resonated widely, inspiring a new generation of innovators, especially young women from diverse backgrounds who saw in her a role model breaking barriers. The journey also transformed Elena personally. The trials strengthened her bond with Mark, who showed remarkable courage amid his health struggles. She reconciled with her father, finding peace in their shared love and history. And with Josh, a deep friendship blossomed into something more, a partnership built on mutual respect and shared dreams. Ultimately, Elena's story became inseparable from Elon Musk's innovation. Together, they had navigated the storm of skepticism, danger, and internal conflict to deliver a technology that promised to change America's energy landscape forever. Yet the true legacy was not just the innovation itself but the human spirit behind it, the courage to push forward, to embrace uncertainty, and to believe in the possibility of a brighter tomorrow. This chapter closes with a powerful reflection, that every great journey is a mosaic of challenges and triumphs, failures and hopes. Elena's path reminds us that behind every headline, every breakthrough, lies a story of perseverance, love, and the relentless quest for meaning and impact. The innovation was taking America by storm, but it was the people, their stories, their struggles, that truly defined its success. Life's complexities, much like technology, resist simple answers. But as Elena had learned, the journey itself, with all its twists and turns, is what shapes us into who we are meant to be. The breakthrough public demonstration, though fraught with tension, had rekindled hope and galvanized support for Elon Musk's groundbreaking innovation. Yet Elena Carter knew the journey was far from over. Behind the scenes, the emotional stakes were soaring as new truths surfaced, shaking the very foundation of everything she and her team had built. The emotional climax unfolded in a quiet conference room, far from the glare of headlines and public applause. Elena sat across from Josh, the trusted engineer who had become both her closest confidant and partner through the chaos. His usually steady demeanor was cracked by the weight of what he was about to reveal. He hesitated, then admitted that some data anomalies they had previously dismissed as glitches were, in fact, signs of a deeper systemic flaw, one that risked long-term damage to the infrastructure if not addressed immediately. The revelation hit Elena like a punch to the gut. Months of progress, sacrifices, and faith could unravel if this flaw was real. Worse, it suggested that internal pressures had blinded them to warning signs, raising questions about oversight and accountability. The room grew heavy with silence as Elena processed the news. Her mind raced through the implications. Could they halt deployment? Should they inform the public immediately, risking panic and backlash? Or was there a way to quietly fix the issue before it became a crisis? Elena's instinct was to confront the truth head-on, yet she understood the complexity of the decision. As the leader, she bore the burden of protecting both the innovation and the people depending on it. In the days that followed, Elena led the team into intense analysis and testing, driven by urgency and a shared sense of responsibility. The long nights and endless data streams blurred together, each discovery deepening the complexity of the challenge. Meanwhile, the external world remained unaware of the brewing storm, caught up in the promise of a cleaner, smarter energy future. Public enthusiasm surged as new cities signed on to pilot the technology, buoyed by the recent successful demonstration and Elon Musk's charismatic endorsements. But behind closed doors, the emotional toll was mounting. Elena's relationship with Musk grew strained as she pushed for transparency and caution, clashing with his relentless drive to meet ambitious rollout timelines. Their conversations became battlegrounds of vision versus pragmatism, each unwilling to yield but bound by a shared commitment to the innovation's success. The tension mirrored the larger internal divisions within the company, where factions debated the balance between risk and reward. Elena found herself navigating not just technical challenges but complex human dynamics, balancing hope, fear, ambition, and ethics. Amid the turmoil, Elena's personal life offered moments of solace and profound insight. Mark's health stabilized, his resilience inspiring Elena to face each day with renewed determination. Visits to his hospital room became sacred interludes, reminding her of the human stakes behind the technological revolution. Their conversations, though sometimes halting, were filled with love and quiet strength. In this crucible of crisis, Elena also reconnected with her father. Old wounds slowly healed as they shared memories and hopes, bridging the gap of years with vulnerability and forgiveness. This renewed family bond grounded Elena, fueling her resolve to steer the innovation toward a future that honored both progress and humanity. The pivotal moment came when the team devised a plan to retrofit the existing infrastructure, addressing the systemic flaw without halting the broader rollout. It was a complex, costly endeavor that required cooperation across departments and external partners. Elena's leadership shone as she coordinated these efforts, inspiring trust and resilience amid uncertainty. The process was arduous, marked by setbacks and small victories, but ultimately successful. When the retrofit was completed, the team gathered to witness the results, a flawless operation that restored confidence and validated their sacrifices. Elena felt a surge of pride mixed with relief, knowing they had averted a crisis that could have derailed everything. This triumph was more than a technical achievement, it was a testament to the power of transparency, collaboration, and perseverance. Publicly, Elena took responsibility for the challenges, speaking candidly about the lessons learned and the commitment to safety and integrity. Her honesty resonated deeply, transforming skeptics into supporters and reinforcing the innovation's legitimacy. The experience reshaped the narrative around Elon Musk's project, from a risky gamble to a model of responsible innovation. As the innovation expanded across America, its impact rippled through communities, industries, and everyday lives. Cities once plagued by power shortages began to thrive, environmental benefits became tangible, and new jobs and opportunities emerged. Elena traveled widely, witnessing firsthand the transformative effects and hearing stories from people whose lives had been changed. These encounters deepened her sense of purpose and connection to the broader mission. Yet, the journey also revealed complex ethical questions and unforeseen consequences. Some communities faced disruption as infrastructure was upgraded, raising issues of equity and inclusion. Elena championed initiatives to address these concerns, ensuring that progress did not come at the expense of vulnerable populations. She worked to foster dialogue and partnerships that honored diverse perspectives and needs. Through it all, Elena's relationship with Josh blossomed into a profound partnership. Their shared experiences forged a bond of trust, respect, and affection that sustained them amid challenges. Together, they navigated the delicate balance of work, personal growth, and love, discovering strength in vulnerability and mutual support. The final chapters of this journey brought Elena full circle. She reflected on the lessons of resilience, empathy, and leadership that had defined her path. The innovation was no longer just a project but a symbol of collective hope and possibility. Elena understood that true success lay not in flawless technology alone but in the humanity that shaped and was shaped by it. In a poignant closing moment, Elena addressed a national audience, sharing her story and vision. She spoke of the power of dreams, the necessity of courage, and the enduring importance of love and community. Her words echoed beyond the auditorium, inspiring countless individuals to believe in their capacity to create meaningful change. Elon Musk's latest innovation had indeed taken America by storm, but at its heart was the story of a woman who faced overwhelming odds, embraced vulnerability, and emerged stronger, leading a nation toward a brighter, more hopeful future. Elena Carter's return to the forefront of the innovation project marked the beginning of a new chapter. One defined not just by technological advancement, but by profound personal growth and evolving perspectives on leadership and sacrifice. After months away tending to Mark's fragile health and reconnecting with family, Elena stepped back into the complex ecosystem of Elon Musk's latest innovation with renewed purpose and a clearer vision. The atmosphere at the company had shifted. Where before there had been relentless pressure and fractured teams, now there was a cautious optimism fueled by recent successes and the hard-won lessons of past setbacks. Elena was determined to lead not through force but through collaboration, empathy, and transparency. Her first act was to assemble the core team for a comprehensive review of their progress and future strategy. The meeting room buzzed with anticipation, but Elena set a calm tone, emphasizing the importance of shared goals and mutual respect. She encouraged open dialogue, inviting dissenting opinions and fostering an environment where innovation could thrive alongside accountability. This approach rekindled the team's energy, breaking down silos and rebuilding trust. The technical challenges remained daunting. The system's expansion into new cities required integration with diverse and aging infrastructures, each presenting unique obstacles. Elena spearheaded initiatives to customize solutions that respected local contexts and needs, engaging directly with city officials, engineers, and residents. These outreach efforts transformed the project from a top-down deployment into a partnership with communities, deepening its impact and acceptance. During this period, Elena's personal life offered both trials and triumphs. Mark's health showed signs of improvement, a testament to their shared resilience and the power of hope. Their bond, forged in the crucible of hardship, grew stronger, providing Elena with emotional sustenance amid the pressures of her demanding role. She also embraced moments of joy and normalcy, a quiet dinner, a walk in the park, laughter shared with friends. These simple pleasures grounded her, reminding her of life's richness beyond the confines of work. Elena's relationship with her father continued to evolve. They spent more time together, sharing stories and healing old wounds. His wisdom and experience became a source of strength for her, and their renewed connection underscored the importance of family as a foundation for personal and professional resilience. At work, Elena navigated new challenges that tested her leadership in unexpected ways. A rival technology company launched a competing energy solution, sparking a fierce battle for market share and public trust. Media narratives polarized, and investors grew restless. Elena responded not with aggression but by doubling down on innovation, quality, and community engagement. She led her team in accelerating research and development, refining the technology's efficiency, and enhancing user experience. Strategic partnerships with environmental organizations and educational institutions expanded the project's reach and credibility. Throughout this period, Elena remained mindful of the emotional dynamics within her team. She recognized the toll that high-stakes innovation could take and prioritized mental health resources, flexible work arrangements, and team-building activities. Her empathetic leadership fostered loyalty and creativity, turning the workplace into a supportive environment where people felt valued and inspired. The narrative of Elon Musk's innovation began to shift from a tale of high-risk ambition to one of sustainable, responsible progress. Elena's influence was palpable in this transformation. Public appearances, interviews, and keynote speeches featured her as a voice of reason and hope, emphasizing the integration of technology with ethical considerations and social responsibility. Her story resonated particularly with young women and aspiring leaders, who saw in her a trailblazer breaking barriers and redefining success. One particularly vivid scene captured the essence of this new phase. Elena stood on a stage at a major energy conference, addressing a packed auditorium. Behind her, a massive screen displayed real-time data from cities powered by the innovation. She spoke passionately about the journey, the setbacks, the breakthroughs, the people behind the technology. Her words were met with standing ovations, signaling a growing national embrace of the vision she championed. Amid these public triumphs, Elena grappled privately with lingering doubts and fears. The pressure to succeed, the memory of past failures, and the ongoing demands of balancing personal and professional life weighed heavily. Yet, she embraced vulnerability as a strength, confiding in Josh and trusted advisors. These candid conversations reinforced her resilience and clarity of purpose. The project's expansion continued, reaching rural areas and underserved communities. This phase brought new complexities, including logistical challenges and the need to address equity concerns. Elena championed initiatives to ensure access and affordability, working with policymakers and advocacy groups. These efforts underscored her commitment to inclusivity and social justice within the broader technological revolution. In a profound moment of reflection, Elena revisited the Nevada desert testing site where the journey had begun. Standing amid the familiar rugged landscape, she contemplated the distance traveled, from uncertain beginnings to a technology transforming lives across America. The stark beauty of the desert symbolized both the harsh challenges faced and the limitless potential ahead. The story's resolution unfolded as Elena led the launch of a nationwide campaign celebrating the innovation's impact. The event brought together government officials, industry leaders, community representatives, and everyday citizens. Stories poured in from across the country, families benefiting from reliable energy, small businesses thriving, and cities reducing their carbon footprints. Elena's speech that day emphasized the collective effort behind the success and the ongoing commitment to learning and growth. She closed with a message that echoed the heart of her journey. Life is full of surprises, but love, resilience, and community will always lead the way. This ending resonated deeply, offering hope and inspiration beyond the technology itself. Elena Carter's transformation from a driven engineer to a compassionate leader encapsulated the story's core message, that true innovation is as much about people as it is about machines. The tale of Elon Musk's latest innovation was not just a chronicle of technological progress but a human story of sacrifice, growth, and the enduring power of hope. As America embraced this new era, Elena's journey stood as a beacon, reminding us all that in the face of adversity, it is our shared humanity that lights the path forward. The expanding reach of Elon Musk's latest innovation brought with it new challenges that tested Elena Carter's leadership, vision, and ability to adapt to an evolving landscape. After the successful nationwide campaign celebrating the technology's impact, Elena realized that maintaining momentum would require addressing emerging issues with even greater urgency and creativity. One of the most pressing concerns arose from unexpected community backlash in several regions. Despite the innovation's benefits, some residents expressed fears about changes to their neighborhoods, disruptions during infrastructure upgrades, and potential environmental impacts they felt were inadequately explained. These pockets of resistance posed a serious threat to the project's progress and public perception. Elena took these concerns to heart. She organized a series of town hall meetings, traveling personally to listen to people's stories, answer questions, and build bridges of trust. In small towns and big cities alike, Elena sat in crowded community centers and open parks, often staying late to engage with skeptical citizens. Her approach was one of humility and transparency, acknowledging past missteps and emphasizing the project's commitment to inclusion and environmental stewardship. These dialogues were challenging but transformative. They revealed gaps in communication and areas where the team's enthusiasm had overshadowed community needs. Elena championed the creation of a dedicated community relations team tasked with ongoing engagement and tailored support. This initiative not only helped ease tensions but also fostered a sense of ownership and partnership among residents. As trust grew, new local leaders emerged who advocated for the innovation, amplifying its benefits and dispelling misinformation. Simultaneously, Elena faced internal corporate challenges. The rapid expansion strained resources, and coordination across multiple departments became increasingly complex. Competing priorities sometimes led to friction, risking delays and lowered morale. Recognizing the need for stronger organizational cohesion, Elena worked with human resources to implement leadership development programs and cross-functional collaboration workshops. These efforts nurtured a culture of shared purpose and accountability, empowering employees at all levels to contribute meaningfully to the mission. Meanwhile, the technical team pushed the boundaries of innovation, exploring next-generation features to enhance efficiency, scalability, and integration with emerging technologies like AI and smart grids. Elena encouraged this spirit of experimentation while balancing it with rigorous testing and quality assurance. The goal was to ensure that new advancements complemented the core system without compromising reliability. Throughout these developments, Elena's personal journey continued to intertwine with her professional life in profound ways. Mark's health stabilized further, allowing them to plan for a future together beyond the hospital walls. Their relationship deepened, rooted in shared resilience and love. Elena also found solace and inspiration in her growing family circle, with her father's stories and wisdom offering guidance during moments of doubt. Her bond with Josh evolved as well, their partnership reflecting mutual respect and a shared commitment to innovation and ethics. Together, they envisioned new projects that could build on the current success to address broader societal challenges. A pivotal moment arrived when Elena was invited to testify before Congress regarding the innovation's impact, safety protocols, and future plans. The hearing was a high-stakes platform where political, environmental, and economic interests converged. Elena prepared meticulously, knowing her words could influence policy and public funding. In her testimony, she balanced technical detail with accessible language, emphasizing transparency, accountability, and community benefits. She acknowledged past challenges openly, presenting them as opportunities for growth and learning. Her candidness earned bipartisan respect and positioned the innovation as a model for responsible technological advancement. The hearing also highlighted the broader implications of the project's success, sparking national conversations about sustainability, infrastructure modernization, and economic revitalization. Elena became a sought-after voice in policy debates and industry forums, advocating for frameworks that supported innovation while protecting public interests. These engagements expanded her influence beyond the company, marking her as a visionary leader committed to systemic change. As the project matured, Elena turned her attention to nurturing the next generation of innovators. She launched scholarships, mentorship programs, and partnerships with educational institutions to promote STEM education, diversity, and inclusion. Her goal was to ensure that the benefits of technological progress were accessible to all and that future leaders were equipped to navigate the complex ethical and social dimensions of innovation. The narrative of Elon Musk's latest innovation, once focused primarily on technical achievements, now encompassed a broader vision of societal transformation. Elena's leadership exemplified the integration of cutting-edge technology with human-centered values. Vivid scenes of community gatherings, bustling innovation labs, and policy debates painted a dynamic portrait of progress fueled by collaboration and empathy. The emotional core of the story remained Elena's personal growth and her unwavering commitment to balancing ambition with responsibility. In a reflective moment, Elena visited a rural town where the innovation had replaced an outdated power grid, bringing reliable electricity to homes and schools for the first time. Walking through the town square, she met residents whose lives had been touched in tangible ways, children studying by bright lights, entrepreneurs launching businesses, families enjoying comfortable homes. These encounters reinforced the profound human impact of her work and fueled her determination to continue pushing forward. Yet, the journey was far from over. New technological frontiers beckoned, along with ongoing societal and ethical challenges. Elena understood that the path of innovation was a continuous cycle of discovery, adaptation, and reflection. She embraced this reality with a sense of purpose and optimism, ready to lead through the next phases with courage and compassion. The chapter closes on a hopeful note, with Elena standing at a crossroads, looking out over a horizon filled with possibilities and knowing that the true power of innovation lies not just in what technology can do, but in how it connects and uplifts people. Her story, intertwined with Elon Musk's revolutionary project, was a testament to the enduring human spirit driving America's boldest dreams forward. Elena Carter found herself at a pivotal crossroads as the momentum of Elon Musk's innovation surged forward, bringing unprecedented change to the American energy landscape. After overcoming resistance and solidifying public trust, new opportunities and dilemmas emerged that challenged her to redefine the scope and impact of the technology beyond its original vision. One of the most transformative developments came when a coalition of environmental scientists and urban planners approached Elena with a bold proposal to integrate the energy system with smart city technologies, creating a holistic network that not only provided clean power but also optimized resource use, traffic flow, waste management, and emergency services. This next frontier promised to elevate the innovation from a technical marvel to a catalyst for comprehensive urban renewal. Intrigued by the possibilities yet mindful of the complexities, Elena assembled a multidisciplinary team to explore the integration. The project required navigating uncharted territory, merging diverse expertise and addressing a multitude of ethical, technical, and social considerations. Elena's leadership style, rooted in collaboration, empathy, and transparency, proved essential in forging partnerships among government agencies, private sector innovators, and community groups. Early pilot programs in select cities demonstrated impressive results. Energy consumption dropped significantly, traffic congestion eased, and emergency response times improved thanks to real-time data sharing and predictive analytics. Residents reported enhanced quality of life, with cleaner air and safer neighborhoods. These successes attracted widespread attention, fueling enthusiasm for broader implementation. Yet, the integration also raised concerns about privacy, data security, and equitable access. Community advocates questioned how sensitive information would be protected and who would control the vast streams of data generated. Elena responded by prioritizing robust cybersecurity measures and establishing oversight committees that included diverse stakeholders. She emphasized transparency and accountability, ensuring that the technology served the public good rather than corporate interests alone. This balance of innovation and ethics became a hallmark of Elena's approach, setting new standards for responsible technological advancement. Meanwhile, the project's rapid evolution demanded constant adaptation and learning. Elena encouraged her team to embrace a culture of experimentation, where failures were viewed as valuable lessons rather than setbacks. This mindset fostered creativity and resilience, enabling the team to tackle unforeseen challenges with agility. The intense pace and high stakes took an emotional toll, but Elena's emphasis on mental health and team well-being helped sustain morale and cohesion. Her own growth as a leader was evident in her increasing comfort with vulnerability and delegation, recognizing that empowering others was key to scaling impact. The personal dimension of Elena's journey remained deeply intertwined with her professional life. Mark's continued recovery brought joy and hope, and their relationship flourished in the shared rhythms of daily life and mutual support. Family gatherings became sources of strength, reminding Elena of the foundational values that guided her work. Her bond with Josh deepened into a partnership marked by trust, shared vision, and genuine affection. Together, they contemplated future projects that could further harness technology to address pressing social issues. In the public arena, Elena's profile soared. She became a sought-after speaker at international forums on sustainability and innovation, sharing insights from the project's successes and challenges. Her message resonated globally, inspiring a new generation of leaders committed to ethical progress. Yet, she remained grounded, focused on the practical realities of implementation and the lived experiences of communities. A defining moment came when Elena was invited to co-chair a federal task force on smart infrastructure. This role amplified her influence on national policy and enabled her to advocate for inclusive, forward-thinking frameworks that balance technological advancement with social equity. The task force's recommendations led to increased funding for research and community engagement, shaping the future of America's infrastructure landscape. Despite these achievements, Elena confronted ongoing dilemmas. The pace of change sometimes outstripped regulatory frameworks, creating legal gray areas and raising questions about governance and oversight. Balancing innovation with precaution required delicate negotiation among diverse interests. Elena's commitment to ethical leadership guided her through these complexities, reinforcing the importance of dialogue and collaboration. The narrative of Elon Musk's latest innovation, once centered on a breakthrough energy system, had expanded into a comprehensive vision of sustainable urban living. Elena's leadership embodied the convergence of technology, humanity, and ethics, illustrating how innovation could serve as a force for inclusive progress. The vivid scenes of bustling smart cities, engaged communities, and inspired teams painted a dynamic picture of a nation in transformation. As the chapter closed, Elena stood overlooking a city skyline illuminated by the integrated systems she helped pioneer. The hum of progress filled the air, mingling with the hopes and dreams of countless individuals whose lives were touched. In that moment, Elena understood that her journey was far from complete. The future beckoned with new challenges and opportunities, inviting her to continue leading with courage, compassion, and vision. The story of Elon Musk's latest innovation was no longer just about technology, it was about the enduring power of human connection to shape a better world. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Elena Carter stood at the threshold of a new and unexpected challenge that would test not only her technical expertise but her deepest values and resolve. The integration of Elon Musk's latest innovation with smart city technology had opened a gateway to transforming urban life across America, but it had also revealed vulnerabilities in the system's architecture, vulnerabilities that malicious actors were eager to exploit. A series of cyber attacks began targeting key nodes of the energy grid and smart infrastructure, causing localized blackouts, data breaches, and disruptions to critical services. The attacks sent shockwaves through the public and government agencies, igniting fears about the security of the nation's essential systems. Elena immediately convened a crisis response team composed of cybersecurity experts, engineers, policy advisors, and community representatives. The atmosphere was tense, the stakes were high. As the project leader, Elena felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. She knew that a misstep could undermine years of progress and erode the trust that had been painstakingly built. The team worked around the clock to identify the sources of the attacks and develop robust defenses. Elena's leadership during this crisis was marked by transparency and empathy. She communicated openly with the public, acknowledging the threats without sensationalism, and emphasizing the resilience and adaptability of the innovation. Her calm and measured responses helped to quell panic and maintain confidence. As investigations progressed, it became clear that the attacks were part of a sophisticated, coordinated campaign by an international hacking syndicate intent on destabilizing critical infrastructure. This revelation underscored the global dimensions of cybersecurity challenges in an interconnected world. Elena collaborated closely with federal agencies, international partners, and private sector leaders to mount a united front. The crisis also brought into sharp relief ethical questions about privacy, surveillance, and the balance between security and individual rights. Elena engaged ethicists, legal experts, and civil liberties advocates in discussions to shape policies that would safeguard freedoms while enhancing protection. These conversations informed new protocols and governance models, reflecting a holistic approach to technological stewardship. Amid the turmoil, Elena found solace and strength in her personal relationships. Mark's steady recovery and unwavering support were sources of comfort, reminding her of the human stakes behind the abstract challenges. Family gatherings offered moments of respite and joy, grounding her in love and shared purpose. Her partnership with Josh deepened, their collaboration extending beyond work into a shared vision for a safer, more equitable future. The crisis also inspired Elena to advocate for greater investment in education and workforce development in cybersecurity and infrastructure resilience. She launched initiatives to cultivate talent from diverse backgrounds, recognizing that the strength of the innovation depended on the creativity and dedication of its people. These efforts aimed to build a more inclusive and prepared community of innovators. Public discourse evolved as well, with increased awareness of the complexities and risks associated with advanced technologies. Elena became a trusted voice in media and policy forums, articulating the nuanced realities of balancing progress with precaution. Her authenticity and expertise earned widespread respect, positioning her as a leader capable of navigating uncertainty with integrity. Technological advances continued in parallel. The team developed adaptive algorithms and self-healing networks that could detect and neutralize threats autonomously, pushing the boundaries of artificial intelligence and machine learning. These innovations enhanced system resilience and demonstrated the potential of technology to safeguard itself when designed thoughtfully. Throughout this chapter, vivid scenes unfolded, from the tense command centers during cyber incidents to community meetings discussing privacy rights, from quiet moments of reflection to dynamic conferences where global leaders strategized together. The emotional landscape was rich and complex, capturing the fears, hopes, and determination that defined the era. Elena's personal evolution was at the heart of the story. The crisis challenged her to integrate technical mastery with ethical leadership and emotional intelligence. She emerged more confident in embracing complexity and uncertainty, and more committed than ever to a vision of innovation that served humanity. As the chapter concluded, the cyber threats were contained, and the resilience of the integrated smart infrastructure was firmly established. Elena stood before a gathering of colleagues, government officials, and community members, reflecting on the journey. Her message was clear: the path of innovation is fraught with risks, but through collaboration, transparency, and shared values, society can navigate these challenges and build a future that is not only technologically advanced but just and secure. The story of Elon Musk's latest innovation had entered a critical phase, one that tested the very foundations of trust and responsibility. Elena's leadership illuminated the way forward, a beacon of hope in a complex, interconnected world. Elena Carter's journey into the heart of America's technological renaissance had reached a defining moment as the integration of Elon Musk's innovation with smart city infrastructure matured into a nationwide movement. The victories over cyber threats and community skepticism had forged a resilient framework, but new questions about sustainability, equity, and long-term vision came to the fore. Elena found herself grappling with the challenge of ensuring that this wave of innovation did not just serve the affluent or urban centers but reached every corner of society, especially those historically marginalized. To address this, Elena spearheaded the launch of the Inclusive Futures Initiative, a program dedicated to expanding access to clean energy and smart technology for underserved communities in rural and economically disadvantaged urban areas. The initiative aimed not only to provide physical infrastructure but also to empower local populations through education, job training, and participatory governance models. This approach reflected Elena's evolving philosophy, that technology's true promise lies in its capacity to uplift humanity as a whole, bridging divides rather than deepening them. The rollout of the Inclusive Futures Initiative was met with both excitement and logistical hurdles. In remote regions with limited connectivity and resources, teams faced formidable challenges installing and maintaining systems. Elena's leadership style, collaborative, hands-on, and adaptive, proved invaluable as she encouraged flexibility and innovation in problem-solving. Partnerships with local organizations, tribal leaders, and community activists ensured that solutions were culturally sensitive and tailored to unique needs. As communities began to experience tangible benefits, reliable electricity, improved healthcare access through telemedicine, enhanced educational tools, the initiative gained momentum and media attention. Stories emerged of young people inspired to pursue STEM careers, of small businesses thriving with new energy resources, and of elders reconnecting through digital platforms. These narratives underscored the human impact behind the technology, validating Elena's vision. Simultaneously, Elena faced internal challenges as her team expanded rapidly to meet growing demands. Maintaining the company's core values and culture amid scaling pressures required intentional effort. She implemented leadership development programs emphasizing emotional intelligence, ethical decision-making, and community engagement. This focus on people nurtured a workplace where innovation was balanced with compassion and integrity. The initiative also sparked important conversations about data sovereignty and community control over local infrastructure. Elena championed frameworks that respected local governance and promoted transparency, addressing fears of external exploitation. These efforts reinforced trust and fostered sustainable partnerships. On a personal level, Elena's relationships continued to deepen and evolve. Mark's health had stabilized to the point where they could begin planning for a shared future beyond immediate caregiving. Their bond, strengthened by adversity, now included renewed dreams and possibilities. Family ties grew stronger, with Elena's father becoming an active supporter and advisor in her initiatives. Her partnership with Josh flourished, their complementary skills and shared values driving both professional success and personal fulfillment. Publicly, Elena's stature as a leader of inclusive innovation earned recognition and accolades. She was invited to global summits on sustainable development, where she advocated for models that integrated technology with social justice. Her speeches emphasized humility, collaboration, and the necessity of listening to diverse voices in shaping the future. The narrative arc of Elon Musk's innovation, originally a story of technological breakthrough, had transformed into a saga of societal transformation guided by human-centered principles. Vivid scenes depicted the installation of solar arrays on community centers, interactive workshops empowering local youth, and cross-cultural celebrations of progress. These moments captured the spirit of possibility and shared endeavor. However, the path was not without obstacles. Economic disparities, political tensions, and entrenched skepticism occasionally threatened to slow progress. Elena confronted these challenges with patience, strategic alliances, and an unwavering commitment to dialogue and inclusion. She understood that change was a gradual, collective process requiring resilience and empathy. The chapter culminated in a landmark event, the dedication of the first fully integrated smart community powered entirely by Elon Musk's innovation and governed with active citizen participation. The ceremony was attended by residents, officials, and innovators, symbolizing a hopeful model for the nation's future. Elena's keynote address encapsulated the journey. Innovation is not just about technology, it's about people, our stories, our struggles, and our dreams. When we build together, with respect and care, we create a future where everyone belongs. This declaration resonated deeply, inspiring renewed commitment across sectors. As Elena looked out over the gathering, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment tempered by the awareness that the journey continued. The story of Elon Musk's latest innovation had evolved into a living testament to the power of leadership grounded in empathy, vision, and shared humanity. Elena Carter's path illuminated how technology could be harnessed not only to solve problems but to unite communities and kindle hope. The chapter closed on a hopeful horizon, inviting readers to imagine the possibilities that arise when innovation embraces inclusivity and compassion. The fall air in Washington, D.C. carried a crisp edge as Elena Carter arrived for what would be the most consequential meeting of her career. Inside the Capitol, lawmakers, military representatives, tech executives, and energy leaders gathered in a high-security briefing room. The agenda was clear: the U.S. government was preparing to declare Elon Musk's innovation a piece of national critical infrastructure. The implications were enormous: greater funding, wider reach, and expanded public-private partnerships, but also higher scrutiny, regulation, and risk. Elena had prepared extensively. Her role had transformed from engineer and visionary to a steward of a national asset. Her every word now carried weight in economic policy, environmental strategy, and national defense. As she stepped to the podium to address the room, her thoughts drifted back to the beginning. Late night sketching ideas in notebooks, the first testing site in Nevada, the heartbreaks and recoveries, and all the people who had helped bring the project to life. This isn't about just power, she told the room, voice steady but deliberate. It's about sovereignty, equity, and the security of future generations. If we do this right, we won't just be powering homes, we'll be rewriting what it means to be an American city. The proposal was bold: integrate Elon Musk's clean energy and smart grid innovation into FEMA emergency protocols, upgrade all federal buildings and bases with autonomous energy capacity, and create a nationwide data infrastructure that would be open source but tightly governed. The bipartisan response was surprisingly warm. The technology's proven performance, combined with Elena's reputation for transparency and ethical leadership, calmed most of the initial resistance. Still, there were concerns. Rural senators questioned infrastructure costs. Civil liberty groups warned about data misuse. Elena welcomed the debate. "Challenge us," she said. "Make us prove we deserve this trust. That's how we'll stay accountable." Behind the scenes, tensions simmered. A powerful legacy energy lobby had launched a full-scale campaign to undermine the adoption of the new system, sowing doubt about its stability, its cost, and Elena's leadership. Anonymous op-eds accused her of political ambition. Shadowy articles hinted at foreign entanglements. A fake document leak even suggested the technology had backdoors that could be used by hostile actors. For the first time in over a year, Elena's team felt rattled. She gathered them late one evening in the war room, screens glowing with real-time data, coffee cups scattered across the long oak table. "This isn't just noise," she told them. "This is fear reacting to change. We don't fight fear with defensiveness, we fight it with clarity." They tightened their protocols, launched a transparency campaign, and held a national Q&A webcast hosted by Elena herself. She answered every question, easy and hard, with integrity, refusing to spin or deflect. Her message: "We'll show you everything. No secrets. No shortcuts." That authenticity landed harder than any PR strategy. Polls that had dipped rebounded within days. Public trust climbed even higher. In small towns and large cities, mayors began calling Elena directly, asking how they could fast-track their applications into the national energy grid. Some offered to pilot new ideas for integrating AI and water systems, turning local governance into innovation hubs. Meanwhile, Elena's personal life remained both her anchor and her sanctuary. Mark was finally strong enough to travel, and the two took a long-overdue weekend trip to Montana. In the soft quiet of pine forests and crisp lakeside mornings, they talked about what came next. Not just for the project, but for them. "You always carry the weight of everything," Mark told her as they sat by the fire one night. "Maybe it's time you started dreaming for yourself again." The word struck her deeper than he likely knew. Somewhere along the journey, she had traded parts of herself for the mission. She hadn't painted in years. Her guitar sat untouched in her home office. She had forgotten, in the tides of national meetings and tech briefings, that she was allowed to have dreams outside of progress. When they returned home, she dug the guitar out, retuned it slowly, and played for the first time in nearly a decade. The sound was rusty but real. It reminded her of who she was before all of this began, and why she had started. At work, the momentum surged. Federal legislation passed to designate the innovation as a critical part of American infrastructure. The bill, dubbed Project Renew, allocated billions toward expansion, cybersecurity, education, and workforce development. Elena was invited to the White House signing ceremony. Cameras flashed as she stood beside the president, but her thoughts were with her team: technicians working night shifts in West Texas, engineers running diagnostics in Detroit, teachers in Atlanta using the curriculum she helped design to inspire the next generation. The ripple effect had begun. In places where people once feared power outages during storms, now the lights stayed on. In neighborhoods plagued by pollution, the air began to clear. Kids whose parents had struggled to afford electricity were now learning how clean energy worked, some dreaming of building even better systems. Elena knew that infrastructure was only half the battle. Mindset was the rest. She returned to schools, holding town halls with students and teachers. She visited former coal towns and met with ex-miners now working as system technicians. She made sure that every spreadsheet had a human story behind it. One afternoon, during a visit to a mid-sized city in Ohio where the local grid had recently been converted, she stopped by a park that had been outfitted with solar charging benches and smart lighting. An elderly man sat on one of the benches, reading. When he looked up and recognized her, he smiled. "My grandkids play here now," he said. "Used to be too dark, too dangerous. Now they stay after school. It's like the neighborhood started breathing again." Elena smiled. That's exactly what this is supposed to feel like. By year's end, the innovation had reached over 40% of American cities in some form. The next goal, rural America. The vast, often overlooked areas between coastal tech hubs and major metro centers. The challenges were steep: limited infrastructure, distrust of federal systems, and aging grids. But Elena believed the heart of the future was in those regions. She launched a program called Roots and Wires, aimed at rebuilding rural infrastructure in partnership with local communities, training residents, and preserving cultural identities while integrating new tech. No bulldozing. No erasing. Just building together. Some regions resisted at first. But as results came in, more jobs, lower energy bills, cleaner air, resistance began to wane. The program offered not just wires and systems, but dignity. Agency. A place in the future. The final months of that chapter saw Elena preparing to hand off daily operations to a new executive director so she could focus on strategic planning and global collaboration. She wasn't stepping away, she was stepping up to see the bigger picture. What America had done could be a model for other nations. She was invited to address the United Nations on sustainable technology. The speech was streamed across continents. "Technology alone will not save us," she said. "Only our choices, our values, and how we choose to share power, literal and metaphorical, will determine our fate." As she left the podium, the applause echoed through the chamber and into her chest. It was not just the sound of success, it was the sound of a world beginning to believe that another way was possible. Elena walked out into the evening light, the city glowing not with electricity, but with hope. And in her pocket, a note Mark had written that morning before she left for New York: "You dreamed of building something bigger than yourself. Now look what you've made. Just don't forget to come home to yourself, too." She smiled as she folded it and stepped into the night, ready for whatever came next. Elena Carter woke up before dawn the next morning in New York City, her body still humming from the energy of her UN address the night before. Outside her hotel window, the city was bathed in the golden hush of early morning, a rare moment of quiet for a city that never slept. It felt symbolic, almost poetic. After months of non-stop movement, tension, victories, and sacrifices, there was finally a pause. A breath. But she knew that pause would be brief. The world was watching. Following her address, dozens of countries had reached out to request pilot programs for Musk's innovation, now known globally as Project Pulse. Some saw it as a path to energy independence, others as an economic lifeline, still others as a way to leapfrog traditional infrastructure and bring entire regions into the future overnight. The potential was staggering, and so were the risks. Global expansion brought with it complexities no one had yet faced. Political instability, corruption, differing regulatory environments, cultural nuances, and the looming threat of geopolitical manipulation. Elena had anticipated this moment for months, even as she kept her head down building momentum at home. Now that the call had come, she had a decision to make: should she leave the US-based leadership post and spearhead Project Pulse's international efforts? Or should she remain stateside and let others lead the expansion beyond her borders? She didn't answer right away. She spent the next week meeting with her advisory council, her leadership team, and key global partners. She laid out the stakes, both strategic and moral. We are not selling software or exporting hardware, she told one group of ambassadors. "We're offering trust. If we break that, even once, it won't matter how elegant the technology is. It'll fail." Her clarity impressed even the most cynical observers. She proposed a bold new model for global integration. Every country or region that adopted Project Pulse would have its own citizen oversight council, a localized ethics board, and its own educational partner to ensure knowledge transfer and empowerment. No blind dependencies. No extraction. True partnership. Back in D.C., her team met her proposal with mixed emotions. Some worried about mission drift. Others feared losing their founder to international demands. But Elena reassured them, "We've built something that works because it listens. Let's not become the thing we were trying to fix." Ultimately, the board voted unanimously to greenlight a global arm of Project Pulse, with Elena at the helm. It meant she'd be transitioning out of day-to-day U.S. operations within 6 months. The announcement rocked the tech world. Media headlines shouted everything from "Elena goes global" to "the world's new energy architect." But Elena herself remained calm, focused, and intentional. She didn't want to be a celebrity. She wanted to make this work. She spent her final quarter in U.S. leadership focusing on 2 key priorities: continuity and culture. She chose her successor carefully, a seasoned engineer and strategist named Priya Mehta, who had grown up in rural Georgia and had led some of the most complex deployments of the innovation across underserved communities. Elena admired Priya's precision and heart, and most importantly, her ability to lead without ego. "You don't need to fill my shoes," Elena told her. "You just need to walk your path." Together, they launched the American Legacy Plan, which committed to completing smart grid integration in all 50 states within 5 years, building rural training academies, and ensuring indigenous, Black, and Latino communities were not just included but leading in the innovation economy. Meanwhile, Elena began forming the Global Pulse Coalition, a task force of scientists, ethicists, diplomats, entrepreneurs, and educators from every continent. Their first summit was held in Reykjavik, Iceland, chosen for its neutrality and history of bold climate action. The week-long event was unlike anything Elena had experienced. Delegates didn't just discuss energy, they discussed justice, land rights, migration, climate reparations, and technology's role in a deeply unequal world. It was humbling. She spent hours listening to stories of communities where energy scarcity wasn't an inconvenience, it was a death sentence. Where children had never known refrigerated medicine. Where farmers had lost entire harvests to unreliable irrigation. And yet, everywhere she looked, she saw resilience. Creativity. Strength. Elena returned home with her worldview both expanded and sobered. She understood that exporting a US-born technology wasn't the answer. Co-creating locally driven versions was. And that's how she began building pulse hubs in strategic regions: West Africa, Southeast Asia, South America, the Arctic Circle. Each would be staffed by local engineers, governed by local coalitions, and adapted to local needs. Elena's team provided the scaffolding, the mentorship, the access to resources, but the vision belonged to the people. Back home, her personal life remained her grounding force. Mark had taken a teaching job at a local university, finally able to use his medical recovery experience to inspire pre-med students in courses on trauma, hope, and bioethics. Their home, once defined by the glow of data screens and meeting alerts, now had laughter, music, and the smell of slow-cooked meals. Elena began painting again, abstract watercolors that captured the color of motion, wind, and possibility. One night, curled on the couch with Mark, she admitted, "I'm scared of what's next. Not because I think we'll fail. But because I've never imagined a world where it could actually work." Mark squeezed her hand. "Then you're exactly where you're supposed to be." By the time Elena officially handed the reins of U.S. operations to Priya, Project Pulse was a national pillar. Energy prices had stabilized. Air quality had improved. Entire neighborhoods had risen from environmental neglect to become models of clean innovation. Her final speech as domestic director was delivered in Detroit, in a former coal plant-turned-solar-powered community tech center. "This country taught me how to break through barriers," she told the crowd. "Now, it's our turn to be the bridge for others. Let's build a world that listens before it innovates. Let's lead with heart." As she stepped down, the audience rose to their feet, not just for her achievements, but for the way she had carried them all with her. Every worker. Every doubter. Every dreamer. The chapter was closing, but Elena wasn't fading. She was rising, again, into a wider sky. Her next flight was already booked. Destination, Nairobi. The first African Pulse hub was set to launch in just a few weeks, and Elena planned to be on the ground, not with blueprints, but with open ears. The world was no longer asking what Elon Musk's innovation could do. Now it was asking how far it could go. And thanks to Elena Carter, the answer seemed limitless. Elena Carter stepped off the plane in Nairobi to a chorus of wind and sunlight. The sky stretched wide above the African savanna as if the entire continent had paused for a breath. She had visited Kenya once, years ago as a student, but this trip was different. This time she wasn't here to observe, she was here to build. And not just infrastructure. Trust. Shared purpose. A future that didn't look like Silicon Valley exported and stamped on foreign soil, but one that rose up organically from the land and the people themselves. The Nairobi Pulse Hub had been 2 years in planning, and the launch was both symbolic and strategic. Kenya's government had embraced clean energy faster than many of its peers, and the country's youth population was one of the most technologically curious and connected on the continent. But even so, the disparities were sharp. In rural areas, blackouts were a weekly norm. In urban slums, diesel generators belched thick smoke between crowded apartments. Elena's job wasn't to fix these problems herself, it was to help local teams unlock solutions that could outlast any outsider's involvement. She was greeted by Wanjiku Shirku Kamau, the Kenyan engineer who had been tapped to lead the Nairobi hub. Shirku was in her early 30s, wiry and intense, her eyes quick and her smile crooked. She had built her career reverse engineering Western hardware and adapting it to work on minimal grids. "You're not here to take over, right?" Shirku asked as they walked through the dusty courtyard of the Pulse compound. "Because if you are, I'll hand you the whole project and walk." Elena smiled. "I'm here to follow your lead. I want to understand how this works for you. Not how it worked in Texas." That answer seemed to land. Shirku nodded and motioned for her to follow. What Elena found inside was a burst of kinetic ambition. Young engineers hunched over worktables soldering boards, software developers ran simulations on repurposed laptops, students from the nearby university tested solar panels against various types of atmospheric dust. But the most important feature was the listening room. Walls covered in community feedback, handwritten notes, printed WhatsApp messages, audio clips translated and transcribed. "They tell us what's broken, what's working, what they're worried about," Shirku said. "We start with the people. Everything else follows." For the next 2 weeks, Elena shadowed the Nairobi team instead of leading them. She visited Maasai communities experimenting with solar-powered cattle tracking. She sat in cafes with app developers creating microloan platforms for energy-efficient appliances. She watched schoolgirls use small kinetic chargers to power their tablets during class. One afternoon, she joined a town hall in Kibra, Nairobi's largest informal settlement, where community leaders voiced concerns about data ownership. "We don't want another system where outsiders collect our data and disappear," one elder said. "If the energy's local, the knowledge must be local too." Elena stood and responded plainly, "You're right. That's non-negotiable." She then outlined a new agreement. All Pulse hubs would establish community data trusts, where any data collected by smart systems would be stored, accessed, and governed locally, never sold or transferred without explicit consent. The announcement was met with cautious approval. Change here required patience, not persuasion. Meanwhile, back in the US, Priya had hit the ground running as Elena's successor. Domestic coverage of Project Pulse focused on the smoothness of the transition, even praising Elena's foresight in grooming ethical, competent leadership. The American Legacy Plan was being implemented state by state. In D.C., the Department of Energy had launched Pulse apprenticeships in public schools. In Kentucky, former coal workers were retraining as microgrid technicians. Elena kept in touch, but she resisted the urge to intervene. Let them build now, she reminded herself. It's theirs, not mine. In Kenya, the Nairobi hub reached a critical milestone, launching its first autonomous mini-grid in a rural community where energy access had been spotty at best. Elena attended the activation ceremony, which doubled as a village celebration. Children danced in plastic sandals as a local band played under strings of hand-painted flags. A grandmother switched on a clean energy cookstove for the first time, her eyes wide with disbelief. "No more smoke," she whispered. Elena fought back tears. That night, Shirku and Elena sat under the stars drinking ginger tea from tin cups. "This is why we do it," Shirku said. "Not for headlines or panels. But for that one clean flame. That one quiet night." Elena nodded, heart full. "It reminds me why I started." "Why did you start?" Shirku asked. Elena thought for a moment. "Because I believed something better was possible. And because I was tired of waiting for someone else to do it." The conversation stayed with her. Across the globe, other Pulse hubs were forming, in Dhaka, Bangladesh, in Recife, Brazil, in Sarajevo, Bosnia. Each led by local visionaries. Each shaped by its geography, its culture, and its community. No two were alike, and that was the point. The success of Project Pulse was no longer measured in installations or patents, but in shared agency. In reclaimed power, both electric and personal. But not everyone celebrated. In parts of Europe, nationalist movements warned against technological colonization, even as their own populations demanded cleaner grids. A viral conspiracy theory in Russia claimed Pulse hubs were a front for U.S. surveillance. In America, a populist senator began pushing for Pulse's decertification as critical infrastructure, claiming it weakened national autonomy. Elena stayed above the noise. She focused on partnerships, on substance, on community. Her new title, Global Director of Project Pulse, came with no corner office and no entourage. She traveled light. Worked late. Led with transparency. By her second year abroad, Elena had visited 27 countries, advised 3 governments on ethical energy policy, and spoken at 5 more UN summits. But she never lost sight of the individual stories: the fisherman in Sri Lanka who now used solar lamps to guide his boat, the teenage coder in Lagos who reverse-engineered a diagnostics tool for power outages. The Alaskan village that saved $80,000 in a single winter by using smart heat allocation. These stories became her compass. They reminded her that innovation was only worth anything if it improved someone's real, everyday life. Mark joined her occasionally when his academic calendar allowed, and they made it a point to unplug, hike, laugh, and remember who they were before this journey consumed them. They talked of building a small retreat someday, a place where dreamers and doers could rest and reset. "You're always taking care of everyone else," he told her during one quiet weekend in Bhutan. "You've earned a place to just be." She smiled. One day. Maybe. But for now, there was still more to do. As Chapter 13 drew to a close, Elena stood on the balcony of the Nairobi hub watching the city light up, not chaotically, but rhythmically, pulsing with intention. She thought of the question she'd asked herself years ago: what if everything could be rebuilt from trust? Now she knew the answer. It could. It was. One community at a time. One spark at a time. One voice at a time. By the time Elena Carter landed in Dhaka, Bangladesh, the monsoon season was in full swing. Sheets of rain clung to the aircraft windows as the city below pulsed with chaotic energy, rickshaws weaving between buses, vendors covering their stalls with tarps, children splashing barefoot through the streets. It was a different kind of storm from the ones Elena had grown used to. This one didn't come from bureaucrats or lobbyists or data leaks. It was nature, raw and unrelenting. And it was the reason she was here. The Dhaka Pulse Hub was being developed not just as an energy node, but as a climate resilience laboratory. Bangladesh, a nation crisscrossed by rivers and bordered by the Bay of Bengal, had become ground zero for climate displacement. Villages vanished under rising tides. Crops failed from saltwater intrusion. Urban populations surged as rural families sought refuge, straining infrastructure and deepening poverty. Elena's mission wasn't to bring salvation. It was to listen, learn, and collaborate. She was met at the airport by Amir Rahman, a systems engineer and climate data specialist who had been leading early deployment of microgrids in flood-prone areas. Unlike Shirku in Nairobi, Amir was more subdued, academic, his sentences laced with stats and citations. But beneath the numbers, Elena saw a quiet fire. If we can stabilize energy in these environments, he told her during their drive into the city, we can start building continuity. Schools that don't shut down during storms. Clinics that keep medicine cold. People who don't have to flee every season. The Pulse Hub was headquartered in an old textile factory near the river, repurposed with wind turbines and solar arrays lining the roof. Inside, engineers and climate scientists worked side by side, poring over models that integrated rainfall forecasts with grid loads. Elena toured the facility in knee-high waterproof boots, impressed not just by the technology but by the urgency in everyone's eyes. We've got maybe 10 years before parts of this coast are uninhabitable, Amir told her one evening as they reviewed a new sea level projection. And the people who'll suffer the most are the ones who contributed the least to the problem. Elena nodded. She'd heard that truth before. In Kenya. In Alaska. In the American South. The story was always the same, communities with the least power were always the ones asked to carry the heaviest burdens. That's why Project Pulse mattered. Not because it promised a perfect fix, but because it created new lines of agency. Within days of her arrival, Elena joined the team on a field visit to a Delta village that had recently adopted Pulse's floodproof microgrid modules. These boxy, buoyant units were mounted on reinforced platforms that could rise with the tides and keep energy flowing during extreme weather. As they arrived, elders in colorful saris greeted them beneath tarpaulin awnings. Children peered shyly from doorways. A solar lamp flickered on above one home, and a cheer erupted. That one used to go dark every week, Amir said, translating. Now it's been steady for 40 days straight. Elena looked around and saw something deeper than gratitude, dignity. These weren't people waiting for charity. They were partners in their own survival. One woman, Samira, invited them inside to show how she'd repurposed a section of her home into a classroom. When the power stays on, we can teach even when it rains, she explained through a translator. Elena sat on the cool clay floor and watched as Samira's students practiced reading with small tablets that charged on a solar rack. This is what it looks like, Elena whispered later to Amir. Resilience you can touch. But as progress accelerated, resistance followed. A coalition of foreign companies that had long profited from diesel contracts in the region began spreading disinformation online, claiming the Pulse modules were dangerous, unstable, even foreign surveillance tools. Some village leaders were swayed. A few installations were sabotaged. In one coastal district, a grid array was torched. Elena didn't retreat. She went straight to the heart of the backlash, meeting with skeptical elders, religious leaders, even the disinformation bloggers themselves. She answered every accusation with transparency. You don't have to trust me, she said in one tense community meeting. But test the system. Check the code. Follow the data. If we've built something that doesn't serve you, we'll tear it down. That radical openness began to turn the tide. Slowly, more villages asked for installations. The government launched a task force to prosecute sabotage. And in a dramatic reversal, one of the largest mobile networks in Bangladesh offered to partner with Pulse and expand its microgrids to boost service in rural regions. It wasn't just about clean power anymore, it was about connectivity, education, commerce, life. Meanwhile, Elena's reputation continued to grow. She was invited to speak at the COP Climate Summit in Marrakesh. Her message was clear: resilience doesn't scale from the top down. It grows from the roots up. She emphasized that for every billion-dollar initiative, what really mattered was the one grandmother teaching phonics by solar light. The speech went viral. Students painted murals of Project Pulse in Sao Paulo. A rap group in Manila released a song about clean grids and climate justice. Elena, never seeking the spotlight, accepted the attention only as a tool to amplify the work. Back in Dhaka, the Pulse Hub evolved into more than an energy lab, it became a training center. Farmers learned to maintain battery storage systems. Youth groups studied data ethics. Women's cooperatives received grants to build solar-powered co-working centers. The innovation was no longer just Musk's, it belonged to everyone. But the weight of global leadership was wearing on Elena. Mark noticed it in their video calls, her eyes a little slower, her voice more measured. "You haven't stopped in over 2 years, he told her one night as they FaceTimed across time zones. "Maybe you need to think about what comes after Pulse." Elena didn't answer right away. Could she really step away? Hand off something she had poured herself into completely? Would it keep its integrity? Would the momentum survive without her at the center? The questions haunted her. She took a short leave to retreat to the Chittagong Hill Tracts, a forested region in southeastern Bangladesh where she hiked, meditated, painted, and slept more than she had in months. In that silence, something shifted. She realized she didn't need to disappear, just transform. Elena returned to Dhaka with a new plan. She would create a global council of regional Pulse directors, Shirku in Nairobi, Amir in Dhaka, Luisa in Sao Paulo, and others. Together, they would rotate leadership, hold each other accountable, and guide the movement with shared vision and distributed power. No more single-point leadership, she told them at their first virtual summit. This isn't a startup anymore. It's a global commons. The response was overwhelming. Applause, tears, laughter. They were ready. And Elena? She finally felt free. Not because she was walking away, but because she'd built something that could thrive without her holding it together. Her final month in Dhaka was full of quiet joy. Planting mangroves with schoolchildren, helping design a bilingual Pulse curriculum, painting a mural with local artists on the hub wall. It read, in bold letters, "Power for the people. Built by the people." On her last night, Amir handed her a small journal wrapped in linen. Inside were notes, sketches, and thank yous from everyone who had worked at the Dhaka hub. One line, scrawled by a teenage girl named Rina, caught Elena's eye: "You showed us that we're not waiting for the future. We are the future." Elena closed the journal and held it to her chest. That night, as the monsoon raged and lightning stitched the sky, she slept soundly, her mission not finished, but transformed. A spark had become a current. A current had become a movement. And the movement had become a world reshaped by trust, courage, and human hands. Elena Carter arrived on a stormy evening, thunder rolling in the distance as her car climbed Avenida Paulista. She had come not for a grand unveiling or ceremonial launch, but to witness a local transformation already in motion. Unlike Nairobi or Dhaka, Sao Paulo hadn't waited for international aid or approval. Luisa Ribeiro, the lead engineer and activist behind Brazil's Pulse Hub, had started converting neighborhoods into autonomous energy zones nearly a year before the global expansion was formally underway. "We didn't ask for permission," Luisa said, hugging Elena tightly in the airport lobby. "We saw what was happening and decided we wouldn't wait to be rescued." Luisa was Elena's opposite in many ways, bold, loud, unapologetically political, with tattoos climbing up her arm and a voice that carried through any room. But their vision was identical: energy should be a human right, not a commodity. The São Paulo hub was different from the others. It was integrated into the community in a deeply organic way. Local artists had painted Pulse's story on the walls of alleys, capoeira groups trained under solar-lit domes, teenagers ran a podcast about climate justice and digital autonomy. The hub's main innovation wasn't a new technology but a financial model. Luisa had created a cooperative ownership system where each household that joined the Pulse grid became a stakeholder in the infrastructure itself. People didn't just receive power. They owned it. Elena toured Vila Aurora, a formerly underserved neighborhood now functioning as a net positive energy district. The change was astonishing: clean water stations, climate-cooled community centers, and a microeconomy powered by small solar businesses. Even more striking was the mood: pride. No one thanked Elena. And she didn't expect them to. That was the point. In one courtyard, a young mother named Clara explained how she'd learned to maintain the grid in her area. "I used to feel like survival was all we could do," she said. "Now I wake up thinking about what I can improve. What we can build next." That night, Elena and Luisa sat on a rooftop overlooking the glowing sprawl of São Paulo. The hum of music floated from below: samba, trap, gospel, voices rising into the humid sky. "This," Luisa said, "is what revolution looks like." "It's beautiful," Elena said. "And it's yours." "It's ours," Luisa corrected. "Because of what you started." Elena shook her head. "All I did was light a match. You're the ones keeping the fire going." The next morning brought unexpected news. A major South American energy conglomerate had filed a lawsuit against the Pulse Cooperative, accusing it of destabilizing the regional market and endangering national security. The lawsuit was political theater, but dangerous nonetheless. If the case went to court and Pulse lost, it could set a precedent across the continent. Luisa was furious. Elena was calm. "They're not fighting us because we're wrong," she said. "They're fighting us because we're proving them obsolete." With pressure mounting, Elena and Luisa went public. They held an open press conference in the heart of São Paulo, live-streamed globally. Elena stood beside community members, not above them. "This isn't an energy project," she said into the microphones. "It's a sovereignty project. And we will not be intimidated into silence." The speech triggered a global wave of solidarity. Pulse hubs in Africa, Asia, and Europe organized teach-ins and solidarity builds. American cities lit buildings in yellow, the color of Pulse's emblem. University students held walkouts demanding government support for decentralized energy systems. A week later, the energy conglomerate quietly dropped the lawsuit. It had underestimated the power of collective belief. In the wake of the victory, Elena spent several days in reflection. She had spent nearly 3 years building, listening, traveling, responding. The world had changed, but so had she. Her role, once active and all-consuming, now needed to evolve again. She couldn't be the face of the movement forever. And she didn't want to be. At a quiet dinner with Luisa, she voiced the decision she had been holding inside. "I'm going to step back," she said. "Not from the mission, but from the front lines." Luisa raised an eyebrow. "And do what? Buy a beach house? Paint full-time?" Elena smiled. "Maybe. But mostly, make space. For new voices. For the next generation. They're already leading. I just need to get out of the way." "You sure?" Luisa asked. "People listen when you speak." "They listened," Elena said. "Now they're speaking. And I need to listen again." That night, Elena wrote a letter, one she would publish the following week across all Pulse platforms. It wasn't a resignation or a farewell. It was a transition. A handoff. An invitation. In it, she wrote, "What began as one innovation has become a global reimagining. You don't need me to lead you anymore. You have each other. You have the tools. You have the truth. Use them. Shape them. Make them better. This movement isn't mine. It's ours. And its future belongs to every hand that dares to build." The response was immediate and overwhelming: messages from teens in Indonesia, elders in Alaska, workers in Flint, engineers in Lagos. Gratitude, yes, but also determination. They understood. Elena's exit wasn't a retreat. It was an evolution. Her final days in Sao Paulo were full of small moments: a quiet coffee with Clara, a walk with Luisa through an overgrown city park they dreamed of electrifying next year, one last rooftop view of the city lights blinking like stars below. She didn't cry. She didn't feel sad. Just full. Grounded. Ready. On her last night, as she packed, she looked at her worn travel bag and the stack of journals she'd filled across time zones. She slipped one photo into the front pocket, a snapshot of the first Pulse prototype in Texas, scribbled on the back, "Remember why you started." She didn't need the reminder anymore. She carried that reason in her bones. As her plane rose into the clouds the next morning, she looked down one last time at the city where community had defeated monopoly, where the grid had become a lifeline, and where people had reclaimed their power, literally and metaphorically. Elena closed her eyes and whispered, "Let it keep growing." And somewhere below, in a sunlit courtyard powered by a shared dream, a child switched on a lamp and began to read. The summer heat shimmered across the pavement as Elena Carter stepped out of the car, her shoes crunching on the sun-baked gravel. She stood outside the original pilot facility. The warehouse where the first functioning prototype of Musk's innovation had been tested under her direction, years ago. It was still active, but quieter now, a living monument more than a workspace. Its sign had been updated: Pulse Commons, a living lab for community energy. Underneath was a mural of faces from around the world: Shirku in Nairobi, Amir in Dhaka, Luisa in Sao Paulo, and dozens more. Elena's own face was tucked into the bottom corner, smiling faintly, part of the movement, not the focus of it. She ran her fingers along the mural's edge, feeling the texture of the brushstrokes. It was strange being back. After years of building Pulse across continents, stepping into the place where it all began was like time folding in on itself. Inside, a young woman named Serena greeted her. "You're early," she said with a nervous laugh. "We didn't expect you until 10. Elena smiled. "I needed to feel the floor again. You know. Where it all started." Serena nodded with quiet reverence. "We're glad you came." The staff, mostly 20-somethings now running training labs and innovation sprints, treated Elena not like a celebrity but like a founder returning home, someone who had laid the foundation but trusted them to raise the walls. She watched them work for an hour, tinkering, debating, drawing schematics, and didn't interrupt once. Later that day, she met with Priya Mehta, now nearly 3 years into her role as director of Pulse's U.S. operations. They sat outside a food truck in East Austin, sipping iced tea under a string of lights. "You're doing a hell of a job," Elena said. Priya smirked. "You always say that." "Because it's always true." They talked about expansion, ethics, and what they still didn't know. About grid equity in native lands, integration with aging urban infrastructure, and the fight for digital sovereignty. But mostly, they talked about people. "We can't let it become just another utility," Priya said. "We have to protect the spirit." Elena leaned back, watching the dusk settle. "Then tell their stories. Remind everyone where this came from. What it cost. What it changed." That weekend, Elena attended a Pulse alumni gathering: technicians, community organizers, scientists, and educators who had been part of the earliest rollouts. There was barbecue, music, laughter. Old photos were passed around. A boy who had been just 10 when his Mississippi town received its first smart microgrid was now a mechanical engineering graduate. An indigenous leader from Arizona shared how pulse installations had revived economic opportunities for her people. And in a moment of quiet, a former oil worker from West Texas stood and raised his cup. I used to think progress meant I had to lose. That my way of life had to disappear. But this gave me something new to believe in. We didn't lose. We evolved. That night, Elena sat alone on the porch of her Airbnb, watching fireflies blink in the humid dark. Her journal lay open on the table, but she wasn't writing. She was remembering. The long nights in that first warehouse. The ridicule. The resistance. The moment when she almost walked away. And how close the world had come to never knowing what was possible. She thought about Elon Musk. Not as the icon or the myth, but as the man who had offered her the reins, who had challenged her, then stepped back and let her lead. His name wasn't as present in the movement now. But without him, there would have been no pulse. Just an idea. Just a whisper. On Monday morning, Elena gave a private keynote at the University of Texas. The audience was small, just a group of Pulse fellows and graduate students. No media. No live stream. She wanted it that way. The future doesn't belong to inventors, she told them. It belongs to stewards. To those who build something and then have the courage to give it away. Innovation isn't lightning in a lab. It's trust, repeated. Community, invested. Empathy, scaled. One student raised a hand. Do you think you're done now? Elena paused. I think I'm done being at the center. But I'll never stop building. I just want to build quietly now. Off stage. That afternoon, she took a call from a friend in Bhutan. The microgrid project there had outperformed all projections. Energy use was down. Educational outcomes were up. People had begun planting fruit trees around solar hubs. They call them pulse orchards, the friend laughed. Elena smiled. Of course they do. The idea was alive. Growing in ways she never imagined. That evening, she met with a filmmaker who had been documenting Pulse's rise across the globe. He asked for final interviews, a retrospective. She declined. The story's still being written, she said. And it's not about me anymore. Instead, she gave him names of 10 women who had led regional hubs, each with their own stories of heartbreak and triumph. Talk to them, she said. They're the reason it worked. Before leaving Austin, Elena visited her old apartment, the one she had left behind when Pulse took over her life. A family lived there now. A little girl with a solar-powered scooter zipped by on the sidewalk. Elena stood for a moment by the oak tree near the curb, hand resting against its trunk. She had been a different person here, tired, uncertain, burning at both ends. But also lit from within by something she didn't yet understand. Now she understood. And she was ready. On her flight out, Elena opened her journal and began writing, not a report, not a strategy document. A letter. To the child she and Mark had begun planning for. The one they hadn't told many people about yet. Dear future, she wrote. You are not something we wait for. You are something we build. One choice at a time. One neighbor at a time. One small act of faith repeated until it becomes a world. And somewhere below, across continents and coastlines, Pulse hubs glowed like constellations, connected not by wires, but by people. By belief. By the idea that power, shared, was the most revolutionary kind of power there was. Elena Carter arrived in Iceland in the dead of winter, where the days blurred between muted sunrises and long, shimmering twilights. Snow covered everything in a thick white hush. Reykjavik sparkled modestly beneath the northern sky, a city powered nearly entirely by geothermal and hydropower, a natural complement to what Project Pulse had become. This wasn't a mission trip or expansion tour. She had been invited as a guest, not a leader. A group of energy ethicists and systems thinkers had requested her presence at a quiet global retreat, an annual gathering called The Circle, a network of technologists, policymakers, indigenous leaders, artists, and community builders from over 50 countries. There were no cameras. No press releases. Just dialogue, firelight, and open notebooks. Elena was hesitant at first. After years of forward momentum, silence felt risky. But something in her had shifted during her transition out of frontline leadership. She knew now that deep listening wasn't just a kindness. It was a method. The retreat was held in a glassandwood eco-lodge at the base of a dormant volcano. Snowshoe trails wove between hot springs and pine groves. The first session she attended was titled, Beyond Ownership, The Ethics of Collective Inheritance. A Sami elder spoke about how her ancestors treated the land not as property, but as a presence, something sacred, not scalable. A Palestinian engineer shared her experience building solar grids in Gaza, not as an act of technology but of political resistance. A poet from Lagos read verses about light in the dark and what it meant to hold on to hope when the grid, and the government, failed you again and again. Elena barely spoke that first day. She filled her notebook with fragments, questions, maps of meaning. That night, she sat by the fire with a cup of strong Icelandic coffee, watching the aurora borealis swirl overhead like a ribbon of green ink across a dark page. One of the youngest attendees, a trans artist from Taiwan named Ren, sat beside her. "You started Pulse, right?" they asked. Elena nodded. "I helped start it. But I didn't make it what it is." Ren sipped their coffee, then said something that struck her, "Movements are like rivers. You help guide them for a while, but eventually they carry you somewhere else." She wrote that down. It stayed with her. On the second day of the retreat, a philosopher from Oaxaca gave a lecture about time. Not chronological time, but moral time, the idea that every decision we make bends us toward or away from the kind of world we claim to want. He drew a triangle: agency, responsibility, community. We cannot build ethical systems, he said, without building ethical memory. Elena thought about Pulse's early days. About the near misses, the hard choices. About the workers laid off in the transition, the activists who fought them, the communities that still waited too long for their turn. She knew now that success didn't erase complication. She raised her hand. "What does it mean," she asked, "to lead something that changes the world, but also changes you in ways you didn't expect?" The room was quiet for a long moment. Then the philosopher answered, "It means you are awake." On the final evening of the retreat, the circle held a ceremony, not religious, but reverent. Each participant was invited to place one object into a shared time capsule, a note, a token, a piece of fabric, anything that represented what they hoped the next generation would inherit. Elena brought a crumpled diagram from one of Pulse's first energy trials, still stained with grease and coffee. She folded it and wrote on the back, "Built in a storm. Carried by many. Still unfolding." She placed it gently into the capsule, and with it, something she hadn't realized she still carried, the burden of always holding it all together. When the capsule was sealed and buried under the snow near the edge of the forest, Elena felt something shift. Not an ending. A return. After Iceland, she traveled not for work, but for reconnection. She visited her brother's family in Portland and made pancakes with her niece, who wanted to study marine biology. She went to Mississippi to see Gloria, the woman who had once accused her of betraying her roots, and who now ran a solar training center for women formerly incarcerated. They hugged and cried and talked deep into the night. "You were always ahead of me," Gloria said. "But I caught up. Thanks for not giving up on us." Elena shook her head. "You gave me more than I ever gave you." In Chicago, she guest lectured at a public high school, where students were building mini-pulse models out of 3D printed parts. A ninth grader named Mateo asked her, "Do you ever miss being in charge?" She smiled. Sometimes. But mostly, I'm glad I don't have to be. The best systems are the ones that don't need you anymore. That night, she stayed in a modest Airbnb overlooking Lake Michigan. As the wind howled outside, she began writing what would become her first book, not a memoir, but a field guide for future builders. The title came to her easily, The Power We Share. The book wasn't about her. It was about the journey of trust. It mapped case studies from Pulse and beyond. It offered tools for ethical scaling, methods for community design, and prompts for values-based engineering. It ended with a question: what will you build, and who will you become in the process? When it published 6 months later, it became an instant classic in classrooms and changemaker spaces. Elena donated the profits to a global seed fund for grassroots energy projects. And then she stepped back again. She and Mark finally bought the land they'd talked about, just outside Santa Fe, New Mexico. It wasn't large, but it had sky and silence and enough room for retreat spaces, art studios, and long walks under cottonwoods. They named it Turning Ground. Each season, they hosted cohorts of builders, artists, survivors, and dreamers, people who needed a place to rest, recover, and begin again. Elena no longer flew weekly or gave keynote speeches. But every morning, she brewed coffee for guests and listened to their stories. She found that the work of holding space, of being present and kind and steady, was its own kind of innovation. Years passed. Pulse grew beyond what any of them could have imagined. It wasn't a single initiative anymore, but a patchwork of interconnected systems, cooperatives, and councils. Its structure evolved, but its soul remained intact, power in the hands of the people. Every year, a new generation stepped forward. And every year, they looked a little less like Silicon Valley and a little more like the world they were building, diverse, grounded, multilingual, defiant. One morning, a young woman arrived at Turning Ground. Her name was Sophia, and she was from a small town in Tennessee that had recently become fully autonomous thanks to a new pulse-linked water energy system. She had read Elena's book and wanted to talk. They sat on the porch, sipping strong tea. "Do you think it'll last?" Sophia asked. "All this?" Elena looked out over the hills. "Not by itself. Nothing lasts without care. But the roots are deep now. And you're already tending them." Sophia nodded. "I want to build something that matters." "Then start small," Elena said. "And keep listening. The world will tell you what it needs." That night, Elena stood outside watching the stars rise. She thought of Nairobi, Dhaka, Sao Paulo, and all the places in between. Of laughter and failure, of community and courage. She whispered a quiet blessing into the wind: keep growing. Keep reaching. Keep sharing the power. And the wind carried it onward. The morning began like any other at Turning Ground. The sun slipped slowly over the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, casting long, golden shadows across the mesa. The adobe walls of the retreat house were still cool from the night. Elena Carter stood barefoot on the porch, sipping her coffee as 2 deer grazed beyond the fence line. The quiet wrapped around her like a familiar shawl, earned, peaceful, steady. But that morning brought a message that would stir the stillness she had so carefully cultivated. It came in the form of a small, encrypted letter from one of the Pulse Fellows in Southeast Asia. It wasn't a crisis or a request. It was an idea. A wild, ambitious, beautifully improbable idea. The message, written by an engineer named Jean Yu from Malaysia, was short: "We're close. The AI-assisted decentralized biogrid is working. Fully organic. Adaptive. Self-learning. It mimics forest networks. We've never seen anything like it. Want to see?" Elena read it twice. Then she laughed out loud. Of course they were doing this. Of course the world hadn't stopped pushing forward just because she had stepped away. She responded with one word: yes. A month later, Elena was in Penang, walking through a lush green corridor that Yu and their team had dubbed the Neural Grove. It wasn't just a lab. It was alive, solar ivy crawling up scaffolds, mycelium-based circuit panels growing inside shaded domes, children playing beneath organic smart canopies that adjusted light and temperature in real time. Pulse had always been about distributed power. But here, nature and technology had fused into something beyond anything Elon Musk had imagined. The biogrid adapted like a rainforest. Balancing loads, anticipating needs, healing itself after disruption. We stopped thinking like engineers, Yu explained. We started thinking like trees. Elena touched the bark of a living data trunk, its inner rings pulsing with soft light. This isn't just energy, she whispered. It's intelligence. Exactly, Yu said. And it doesn't want to dominate. It wants to cooperate. The biogrid, they explained, was inspired by the forest's natural neural patterns, the same kind that connect fungal roots, tree roots, insect paths, and even rainfall distribution. It could run entire districts. It could grow itself with compostable materials. It could respond to climate stress faster than any human-run system. But what made it extraordinary wasn't its technical prowess, it was its humility. This is not a replacement for community, said another engineer, Amina from Jakarta. It's a tool for harmony. For aligning human rhythms with the planet's. Elena sat in the grove for hours, watching the system breathe, literally and digitally. It wasn't the future. It was the beginning of a new future. They asked her if she would join their global presentation at the next Assembly of Open Systems, a cross-sector gathering of climate scientists, indigenous stewards, decentralized tech leaders, and educators. You'd only speak for 5 minutes, Yu said. You don't even have to wear shoes. Elena laughed. That's good. I left my conference heels in 2023. She agreed. Not to take the spotlight, but to witness what was being born. And when she stood before the audience weeks later, barefoot, as promised, she didn't speak about legacy or leadership. She spoke about wonder. Once, we thought energy was something we extracted, she said. Then we learned to generate it. Then to share it. But what if it's something we grow? What if the future isn't about power lines or ownership, but ecosystems, living, learning, forgiving ecosystems? We've built grids. Now we must build gardens. Her words rippled through the network. Young designers in Ghana sent sketches for biodegradable sensors that mimicked acacia trees. A university in Finland integrated pulse principles into its entire engineering curriculum. In Bolivia, a coalition of land defenders began using pulse tech to map and protect watersheds. Meanwhile, back at Turning Ground, more people arrived, musicians, linguists, midwives, policy nerds, digital poets. They came not to start companies, but to imagine saner ways of being. One of them, a former venture capitalist turned food justice advocate named Ben, said something over dinner that Elena never forgot: capitalism taught us to scale. But nature teaches us to deepen. Elena smiled. Depth is harder. Exactly, Ben replied. But it lasts. In between these big ideas, life moved on. Mark built an aquaponics greenhouse behind the house. Their child, Ava, now 3, chased chickens and called the solar panels sun cookies. Elena wrote by candlelight some nights and hosted reflection circles by moonlight. There was joy, always joy, but not the adrenaline kind. The rooted kind. The kind that doesn't vanish when the headlines fade. One day, a letter arrived from Elon Musk himself. It wasn't public. It wasn't dramatic. Just typed neatly, signed in ink. It said, simply, Elena, you took an experiment and made it a revolution. I've watched from a distance, and I'm grateful. You didn't just prove the tech, you proved the trust. The future is better because of your hands. Thank you. Elon. She held the letter in silence for a long time. She hadn't heard from him in years. And though they had rarely agreed on methods, they had always shared one thing: belief in the possible. Elena placed the letter in her journal beside Wren's river quote, the drawing from Nairobi, and a dried leaf from the neural grove. Memory and meaning. Then she stood, walked outside, and lifted Ava into her arms. "Look," she said, pointing to the sky. "The world is still becoming." Ava squinted up. "Becoming what?" Elena smiled. "Whatever you help it be." And somewhere across the globe, as another community grid came online in a remote Himalayan village, and a school in Detroit harvested its first rooftop-grown lettuce beneath pulse lights, and an elder in the Yukon Territory told a story under solar stars, a quiet, decentralized revolution continued. No center. No brand. Just people. Connected. Capable. Awake. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?